Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been a varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. Currently, my daughter and I are coaching one of the best AAU teams in the country. Well, Piston fans, I know that it doesn't seem like a very fantastic voyage that we're going on after tonight's loss. I'm recording this after the 129-107 loss to the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta. But we're just coming off a couple games where we led the Heat 98-96 with 4 minutes and 20 seconds left in that game before we ended up losing 112-100. And we've had against Denver, we were tied going into the fourth quarter. Now, these teams that we're playing, they're all fighting for playoff positions. They are all battling, and they have pretty much their whole roster healthy. We are playing with 7 of our top 10 players are not playing, and we are hanging in there. I don't even know how. I guess we can expect more nights to be like tonight. But part of the problem tonight is James Wiseman had not a very good game. He was in foul trouble, fouled out, and only playing 19 minutes. So, again, this team is battling, and we're playing with a bunch of guys who aren't rotational players. We've been lucky that Corey Joseph and Roddy Magruder have been shooting lights out. I think they said that Kojo had the best 9-game stretch of his career where he scored over double figures. They're both shooting over 50% on threes. I don't know, not counting tonight, but anyway, it was just, it's really tough to play when you're under shorthanded, and we're playing with only 8 guys on our team, and then somebody gets in foul trouble, and we're playing these playoff teams that are fighting for their lives, and so it's just the way it is. And now we have, and our next 4 of our next 5 games are away, and oh boy, the one team that we play at home is the Milwaukee Bucks, and they're just pretty much dominating the leagues currently. So, some things we need to talk about. Some people are worried about. I listen to people talk about playing Duran and Wiseman together, and they try to think because they played 9 minutes together, they try to make assumptions of what it could look like. And we can't tell what anything on our roster looks like because we're not even playing with any of our rotational players. So even if they did do good or bad in the short amount of time that they've played together, we still wouldn't know. So we still just have to look for silver linings and things. It was tonight, silver lining was Marvin Bagley, and I can just say this about Marvin. There's certain people in life, like when you were in school, and that was a long time ago that I was in school, but where some kid always gets picked on, and Marvin has not had a great career so far, but he ended up, I don't think he's as bad ever as anybody has said that he is, and he just got off to a bad start. He averaged 14 and 7 his rookie year with the Kings, and then he got injured some, and then pretty soon he stopped playing very much, and then the last year he was there, they didn't play him at all, but it was easy for everybody to look down on him, and they still do. I question, he is injury prone, so that is a reason to think that you might not want him on your team. But other than that, he is not a great defender, but he's a very good offensive player. And for a big guy, he's very talented. He had 31 points tonight. That was 1 point off his career high. 12 for 19 shooting, which is spectacular. 4 for 5 on 3. So that's a big one. So we're hoping that we're hoping Stu can shoot the 3 and Bagley can shoot the 3. And I want to see Wiseman shoot the 3. And I think that obviously it's not going to happen this year. We only have 9 games left. And if he gets chances, I want him to try to get shots up, but I think that this summer I can anticipate that they're really going to push him to work on that 3-point shot, because what I want to see is him play alongside Duran. So that's my dream thing, and it's very disappointing that Duran didn't play tonight, and he took his chin came down really hard on somebody's head, and Kevin Love. Kevin Love was bleeding profusely, and I don't know if I'm not sure that Duren didn't have a concussion, after that jolt to his head. So, but rosters in the NBA, they need, it's a positionless league, but it's not exactly a positionless league because every team needs a certain number of ones and twos, point guards and shooting guards, and then there's the wings, and that's either the shooting guards and the small forward and even the power forward that can be considered wings, and then every team needs, out of the 15 players on the roster, 4 players that are power forward / centers, and so we have those 4 guys, and unfortunately, I'm not sure that all of them can get the playing time that they're going to want. So it's going to come down to Stu, Bagley, Duren, and Wiseman. And, I think there's one of those guys is probably going to be a little bit of the odd man out or not get the minutes that they want to. So that's just the way it is. And it's nice to have that competition. It's nice to have 4 good guys that are big. And I said in another podcast that there's a lot of injuries, and it seems like there are more injuries among bigger players than smaller players. And so, if we have, you look at this season, there's never been a day, I don't know if we've ever played a game all year where, of course, we just got Wiseman, but even with Marvin and Duren and Stu, I'm not sure how many games it's been where we've had all 3 of those guys healthy, let alone then since we've traded for Wiseman. So, big controversy tonight in the game. Ashtray, I'm going to call him that, Trae Young, he got real mad tonight because at the end of the game, and there's some unwritten rules, I guess, in some sports, and there's a lot in baseball, but in basketball, the time was running down, and the Pistons got the ball, and usually what teams do is they dribble the clock out, especially if they're ahead. If they're ahead and the clock's not running out, they will just dribble, and nobody will take a shot at the end of the game. Well, at the end of this game, we're getting beat by 24, and Jaden Ivey drives in there real fast and scores. And a bunch of players from the Hawks bench came after him, and Rodney and Kojo stepped in front of him kind of to protect him, and then a little bit later, Cade stepped in front of him, but still Ivey and Trae were kind of jabbering at each other, and so it's one of those things. It's not, to me, it's not the end of the world. It's not a big thing, and I just get tickled though. Trae Young, there's lots of talk about Trae Young. He's got a couple coaches fired already in his career, and a lot of it, people speculate, and rumors are that it was because they had to deal with him. There was a game where he ended up not playing because Nate McMillan, who got fired, told him not to play if he wasn't going to be at the shoot around or something. And so another thing about Trae, that it's really hard. He's a gifted player, but he shoots a bad percentage. His percentages aren't good, and he does get a lot of assists, but he dominates the ball, and so it's really hard to play with him. They've always, John Collins, I'm not sure that he wants to play with them, and some other guys, because it's hard when you're playing and the other 4 guys are standing around watching him try to get off a shot, and if he can't get off a shot, then he'll pass it, and if he gets double teamed, then he'll dish it. But anyway, there's just a lot of talk about possibly, if the Hawks don't turn it around, about him getting traded, and people, it's interesting, some of them don't think that his trade value is that high for somebody who's supposedly such a star player. But so anyway, against the Hawks, even though we did get blown out and it wasn't a good game for us, we were only 7 down at halftime, so it was halfway decent in spite of everything that went wrong, and Wiseman got in foul trouble. So Bagley had that great game, but Wiseman was only 2 for 6 and played only 19 minutes. He only had 6 points. He did have 5 rebounds, which isn't that bad for 19 minutes. But Killian had 21 points, and he was 7 for 17 shooting, which isn't great, and 2 for 6, which is 33%, but that's above his normal percentage. But he was 5 for 5 from the line. He had 6 assists and 3 turnovers. And I still am, I was really optimistic about Killian, and he has had some better games the last 5 games or so. They've been solid, but what has he ever done? When he's ever had decent games, it's when he has got to play like 30 minutes and he's had the ball in his hands constantly. And when he has his ball in his hands constantly, Ivey certainly hasn't had good games. And I get tickled. One of the guys that has a podcast, he was saying that 9 minutes that Wiseman and Duren played together, that caused Ivey not to have a good game because there wasn't room to operate with 2 bigs in the game at the same time. So, well, they played 9 minutes, and I'm not even sure if Ivey was out on the court for all those 9 minutes. But anyway, Ivey had 17 points. Like I said, 2 of them were at the end of the game when the other team wasn't even trying to guard him. He just zipped in there and shot, but he had a off night. He was 6 for 19 shooting, 2 for 9 on threes, and he's been really good lately. And that wasn't a good night, but he had 4 rebounds and 5 assists. I heard some talk about the all-rookie team, and I get frustrated about this because a guy that I really like, Zach Lowe, he has a podcast, and he works for ESPN, but he comes on there and says that Ivey is like the odd man out. He said he thinks there are 6 guys that deserve to be first-team all-rookie, and Ivey's not one of them. There is a really good podcast on with Sam Vecini and they talk for like at least 15 minutes about how great Ivey is doing, and it's the Game Theory podcast. So if you go to there and look up where they're talking about something about future All-Stars, I think it is. So they believe Ivey's going to be a future All-Star, and even Zach Lowe thinks that Ivey's a really good player, and he even had an article written about him. But I just get frustrated that his rationale is, well, the 2 guys that he was debating between who would make the final spot for the all-rookie team was between him and Ivey and Keegan Murray. But Keegan Murray, he's just going to default to the fact that Keegan Murray's team's winning and Ivey's team's not winning. So I'm going to go into it probably the next episode. Ivey's numbers are all better, and it is easier to get numbers when you're on a team that's not trying to make the playoffs and it's not a good team, especially when all your teammates are injured. So like I said, we were really only playing 3 guys out of our probably 10 rotational guys. Only 3 are playing. So, but still, so what are you going to do? You just need to make a rule. So anybody that's team doesn't win 35 games or more cannot be the Rookie of the Year, which happened to Cade last year because they said because Mobley's team won and the kid from Toronto that won the Rookie of the Year. I can't remember his name, but anyway, Scotty Barnes. So their teams were winning, so they deserved it. But when Mobley's team started losing games, they lost a ton at the end because some of the players were hurt. The good players, they had 2 All-Stars on his team, and some of them got hurt, and so they started losing all their games at the end of the year. And Scotty Barnes, he had a All-NBA player, on his team. So they all had much better players on their teams. So, you can't help it if you get drafted to a team that's struggling, And so do you automatically disqualify them and act like those guys had that big of an impact? Put Keegan Murray on the Pistons, and let's see what happens. I bet you he doesn't come close to putting up the numbers that Ivey did. And I'm not trashing Keegan Murray. He's a decent player. But it's just frustrating to me that they try to make a rationale for who should get it based on what they think. So I think that against the Heat, like I said, it was a close game, and then we just got blown out. We ended up losing by 12, so we got outscored by 14 points in the last 4 minutes and 20 seconds. And that would happen when you got a team and it's really thin. But Wiseman tore it up, man. He had 22 points on really efficient shooting. He had 13 rebounds, and he is, the 6 games prior to tonight's game. So tonight he was bad. But the 6 games prior to this, he averaged 16.3 points and 11.3 rebounds and shot 53%. And there's tons of rumbling with those Warriors fans, and there's a lot more Warriors fans because they've been real successful lately, but they are upset and they are not happy with the Warriors organization because they're seeing how successful that Wiseman's been. So, again, I am real excited for him. We all know all these rookies. Like Banchero, he has struggled. His percentages have dipped terribly for over a month. He has struggled, and yet he is going to be Rookie of the Year in a landslide. But all these rookies go up and down. We've got to see it with the guys that are on our team, and so it is really hard. Just like to mention Sadiq. He played tonight against the Pistons, and I know it was probably hard for him. And Sadiq was a friend and a teammate, and I think people liked and respected him. And he played 20 minutes tonight and scored 14 points, which is really good. But he still only shot 5 for 13, which isn't a great percentage. He got off a lot. 13 is quite a few shots for that. But if you look at the games prior to this, I know a lot of Piston fans watched the game tonight and saying, "Oh man, why we blew it giving up Sadiq." But he played 20 minutes the game before that and had only 6 points. Another game, just one before that, 22 minutes, 5 points, and another game where he had 25 minutes and had 6 points. And I think there's a game in there where he only had 1 point recently. So he is, had some up and down games with them, just like he did for us. He's not getting as many minutes or as many shots as he did with the Pistons. And again, that does happen when you're playing on a roster, and they do have a lot of forwards on their team. So I was curious how they were going to get minutes for him. So, but again, against the Heat, we had Killian was 6 for 14 and had 13 points, 4 rebounds, 11 assists. So the assists were good, and we just got to keep on battling, and we still are trying to get the word play good. We're trying to see positive signs. We got to see a positive sign for Bagley tonight. Was a big positive, having him score 31 points on real efficient shooting. And then we've seen a lot of good games from Duran. Wiseman's been really successful. And it's really, a positive how he's played until, again, he's going to have some bad games like he did tonight, but he's been a real positive thing. He's playing as good or better than anybody I think could have hoped that he would, when he, where was his confidence level when the Pistons got him? It couldn't have been high, all these times he's played through a lot of injuries or not got to play, and heard everybody talk about him, negatively with Golden State. And so I'm just really impressed with how he's played, and I think definitely it's a no-brainer that was a great trade for us. And so, but we'll see what's going on in the future. We do have, like I said, things aren't getting any easier. When we got 4 of our next 5 games away, and the one home game is the Bucks. So, Piston fans, thank you for listening. I appreciate you supporting my podcast, and each and every one of you. If you're listening on Spotify, please leave a 5-star review and subscribe on YouTube. It really helps me if you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. You just have to click on it. It doesn't cost a penny. And leave a thumbs up. Leave comments, and I do my best to answer all of them. I've appreciated your comments. I've had lots of good back and forth with our listeners. But do something nice for somebody today. Make their day better. And go Pistons.